And now I want to click on this bar and this one. Because when I first did this, I kept hand placing everything, and I thought, well, that seems a little more work than I want to do. I'm going to group these for now, and what that's going to do is make sure they stay together. And then I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to drag that over here. I'm going to fill those just so you can see them better. You don't have to do that with your own things. When you weld this all together, the color will come together. We'll fill all the blank shapes. Now, in order to turn this around, you can do this, but I'm going to tell you, I have the worst time with that, trying to get it flat. This is where we introduce our new best friend, which is the undo button, which is right up here. And that's going to undo the last action that I took, and I can keep clicking on it, and it'll, like if I undo it again, it'll unfill it. If I redo it, it'll fill it back up. What I like to use is this, which is the transform panel, and I use the rotate. And in this case, I can click here, or I can click down there. And it's going to flip it over for me, so now I don't have to worry about it. And what I want to do is drag this down to the bottom and place it exactly where, or more or less exactly where I placed the other one, so that that's an inch down. So now these are equally spread out along that long skinny rectangle. I'm going to go ahead and select this all again and center it again. I'm not sure, did I? Yeah, I did. I put that in the instructions. And just to make sure this bottom bit was where it needed to be. All right. So now I have all my pieces lined up. This is a very simple one, and this is all I want to do for this to sort of create my template for my snowflake. I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to group them, which is up here. This is group, this is ungroup. You can also, like every computer program, there's about 100 different ways to do things. Okay, maybe 3 or 4, but still, it's all a matter of preference. You can also right click on it and group it. I know there's a keystroke, but I don't use it. So because between those two things, it's just faster for me. And I'm going to copy this, which is, again, Control D as in duplicate. And I'm going to move this little one of these little guys off to the side. And I'll tell you why. It's because when I first started making these, I tried out lots of different things, and I would weld them right away without having the pieces. I couldn't. And once you weld it, unless you go back through all the undoing and things, you can't change what you've done. So this at least lets me, now I have this, I could add more things to it if I wanted. If I didn't like the way it turned out, I could change something very easily. So rather than having to go back, I save that over there. All right, so the next step is, this is, because it's grouped together, all I have to do is click on it. It's going to automatically select all those things. I'm going to hop up over here. You can do this in, you notice this is going to look just like the weld icon here. This has a lot more options, but really for this one, quick access toolbar, weld selected shapes, poof, and it all turned blue. How we doing, everybody? Any questions?
Nope, I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay, I know I'm clipping along here, but you have the instructions, and really this is a learn by doing thing. You got to get in there and do it. And once you do it 3 or 4 times, I'll show you what happens as you start going a little crazy and making snowflakes, because it's really fun. It's like cutting them out of paper like you used to do when you were a kid. But for me, these look a lot easier. And now that I've got arthritis in my hands, I don't do that kind of thing anymore. All right, so what do we do with this great looking thing we've got here? Well, this is where the magic happens. This is the best part. You go over here to the replicate panel. Open it up. This is selected. And you go down here to this rotate to copies. And I click on that. Oh my gosh, will you look at that? Well, isn't that fascinating? Now I can't leave it like this because if I did and went to cut it out, it would cut on all each and every one of these red lines. That would work. So I want to weld it. But like everything else, before I do so, I'm going to duplicate that. Actually, I'm going to undo that because what I want to do first is group it, and then I'm going to duplicate it. That way I know that when I bring this over here, because I've done it before, is then I say I wanted to move this again. If I hadn't grouped it all, I'd be moving a piece at a time. If you do that, for some reason, you get that over there and you forgot to group it, and you go to move it, and it does this sort of thing where you go, oh, you're like, rats. That's where your undo button comes in handy. I said undo, you little thing. Yeah, there we go. And then I can move this out of the way and regroup all of this. You have to be careful when things are right next to each other because they'll you'll accidentally pick up another object that you really didn't want to group with what you had. So now this is a group. But here's the really fun part. So I'm going to take this down in the middle of the screen. And guess what I'm going to do with this? Yes, I'm going to weld it again. Now, there you have it. I'll show you something though. Let's go in here a little bit. Some of these corners are kind of bumpy. You can see this. It doesn't really matter, but if it bothers you enough, you can do point editing. And I've covered this in a couple of classes, so I didn't put the instructions on here, but real quick, you double click on the shape and you'll see all the points come up. And what you can do is start deleting the ones you don't like so much. Like I don't want that one. And I clicked right on it. Let me go in a little bit closer. Oh.
So you're gonna just keep like the middle one in that case.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's just I'm going to play around with it, see how it works. I'm like, okay, I know I don't want this one either because I think once I do this, yep, now I'm much better. And it gets a little squirrely because as much as I tried to make sure that everything met up just right, you can see that both those two sides didn't look alike, really. But this is just part of learning to use the program. And you can see, I can see that if I get rid of this, I want to say delete it, and I want to click on the point that I want to delete. At this point, you don't need to worry about where that red bar is. But now I've got a better corner. Let's see. Come on out.
I guess you could do like math and figure out exactly how long you can make each one. But
yeah, if I wanted to,
you could use the knife tool too, right? You could use.
You could, but it could get difficult. And there's some of these corners are really like this one's weird. If I would have to play around with this a little bit. Let me go in here because if I take out either one of these, it's going to if I take this point out, well, let's show you what happens. What happens? I've now got a very weird, this is no longer straight. If I take this one out, it's going to be even worse. Yeah. So I would have to play around with that. Yeah, if you would like to do math, please feel free. The end of the day is that it doesn't much really matter. This would be a good one for a knife tool, maybe, is if I go here and I want to cut sort of knock that thing off. I need to go back to my select tool. I'm going to delete that. Again, the way you learn the software is you play around with it. And now if I bring this in, I'm eyeballing this. It's probably not good. But who cares? Because, it's art. It can do what you want. There we go. Not too bad. Not too bad. No, it's still lumpy there because there's two. Did you see the fact there's 2 points there? I'm going to click on this top one and take it out. See what happens. Oh, Not bad, Linda. Let's see. And this is the story of making your own designs. It takes time, and there's nothing else about it. It just does.